We are in Hong Kong, invited by the United Nations ESBN Youth and Women Entrepreneurship Task Force. After one day of activities and presentations from the different task forces, we had the privilege of delivering a workshop for Loughborough Design School, a UX workshop that Garrath will just talk about in a second.
Echo is a mobility cane for blind people, and it's got a bunch of extra features which help them to get a better understanding of their environment. So it uses ultrasonic sensors to scan ahead and indicate whether there's an obstacle ahead before they approach it and actually hit it with the cane itself. There's a cane handle which is detachable, and you can use that indoors in a familiar environment, and that kind of scans ahead and looks for obstacles. It's got all the electronics inside. And then there's a separate cane shaft which you can attach to the handle. If you're going outdoors, you can use that then as a physical cane, which is backed up by the electronics as well. There's also an earpiece and a power pack for that. And the earpiece delivers the audible warnings that you get from the cane handle if there's an obstacle approaching. And it does that with conductive audio technology, which doesn't block your normal sense of hearing, which is crucial for a blind person, of course. Probably the most innovative feature is the cane shaft, which is made from carbon fibre. And it's a special kind of layout process which results in a very lightweight material, which is very strong in flexural, compressive and torsional strength, which means that it can stand up to impacts and collisions with objects quite easily.
One of the things that I guess we've kind of noticed that's happening in this sort of region, the Asia Pacific, is there's this rapid development of sort of fintech industries, and it's I think it's rated in the top 5 places for a new startup business. And just looking around, you have things such as you have sort of Bitcoin spin-offs, and you have these payment things and those sort of things. But what is the key differentiator between their offerings? So you know, there's only so much you can achieve with sort of technical delivery. So one of the things that we believe is missing there is the idea of the customer experience, the user experience. And that's where we kind of come in, because in Loughborough Design School, this is one of the things that we work on, that we really drive, is this idea that the user is at the centre of the experience, and it's all about what they want, what their needs are, and their sort of, you know, the whole offering should be around the sort of scope and vision of that.
Through my research, I found quite shockingly over 50% of the women engaging in water sports activities weren't wearing life jackets on occasions. Some of the reasons they gave for this were things such as discomfort due to neck issues, bust discomfort, and also restricted movement. So there was a real need to not just restyle the life jacket, but actually reform it so that it was an appropriate fit for a female. The adjustment mechanism is completely different. It features a ratchet strap on the side, which massively speeds up the adjustment between users and also when putting on different clothing. It also features a GPS module to locate the user from the vessel they've fallen from, and also an electric whistle to help attract attention. The second accessory is an LED strip, which is a unique accessory that can be used in both an emergency and general use, so that the LED can be seen through the life jacket outer casing, as well as being used on the inflated life jacket.
Just to clarify, Loughborough Design School,
Yeah.
for a lot of people, design means graphic design, pretty pictures. Do you mind clarifying what
Yeah, sure. I mean, it can do, and I think historically that is what it has meant. But as we develop and as we go further, it's about going beyond that. It's about understanding the sort of building blocks that design is based on. So it's not just about understanding a problem and then designing a widget for it, or something pretty or something nice, which we all like. But it's about actually addressing those problems in whichever way that may be. And some of that is product, some of it is service, and it's about focusing on that experience and solving that problem, whatever that mechanism may be.
Dada is a product designed to let a doctor test a patient for up to 12 allergies at a time. It does this by using a variety of small allergen pods. These pods go inside the device, and when they're compressed by the device, they deposit a small amount of allergen extract on the patient's skin, and they also make a prick with a sharp point. That starts the reaction that over time the different pricks will swell up to different sizes, depending on how allergic you are to the different allergens. And then the doctor can come back and make a diagnosis based on that swelling, and then the patient can go away knowing what they're allergic to. The benefits of the Dada product system are that it's a lot more standardized than the current method. The current method is very manual compared to the mechanical way that the Dada handheld device does it. So there's a lot of variation between how one doctor does it compared to the next one. It does up to 12 at once, so you're not doing individual pricks, which is repeated pain for the patient essentially. So you're doing it all in one and getting it out of the way, which helps especially with children who might not want to do it after you do the first one. It helps with standardization, it helps with patient compliance because of that. It's less painful over a shorter amount of time. And also it helps with reducing the amount of time taken to complete the whole test, which is a big benefit to the NHS because most of their costs are in staff costs. So if you can reduce the time it takes, you can save a lot of money.
How often the services or the products being provided are not digital because it might be a remote community, it might be a very poor community, so they're still making their way onto the digital world. So it might be something very small. So in that context, how do you have an idea of how UX, user experience, which is usually associated with digital, how could that be implemented?
That's not an easy question to answer,
I
but
know it's not. Let's have a go.
But this is where it comes from, understanding the experience and what is needed at that point in time. So it's about understanding all the different touch points. It's not about saying, oh, let's just create more apps, because then the question is, well, do they have phones? Do they have power for these? Do they have internet reception? How are they going to get this reception? Well, because the place.
A credit card can be a digital touch point.
Exactly.
Even in a remote community, there might be a paying card.
Exactly, and as we're moving towards more ubiquitous computing and cloud networking and processing, etc., then we're starting to see more chips integrated into other things that we wouldn't necessarily expect. So, I mean, we're starting to see it with watches, we're starting to see it with glasses, but I think we're going to start seeing it in everything. We're going to see it in clothes, we're going to see it in floors, we're going to see it in birds. It's going to be everywhere.
My product is a motorcycle helmet designed for backpackers in Southeast Asia. So the idea is they would purchase a helmet in the UK and take it out with them. Helmets in Vietnam and Southeast Asia are made to a very poor standard. This makes a really high death toll in the area of around 10,000 each year. Overall, there's 3 unique parts to my helmet. The first, offering a better protection than the majority of the helmets that are already out there. This is just by doing simple things like having the correct thickness of foam in the certain impact areas. The second, and probably the most unique part, is the foldability. So the helmet folds down about 20% of its original size. This allows you to do one of 2 things. One, either put it in your main backpack, or the second is put it in your normal daily rucksack, allowing you to take it around with you all day.
Just one other thing that I think it's worth clarifying is the word UX, user experience, the 2 words, user experience. Usually there's a little misconception there because people mistake it for UI, which is user interface design, or architecture information design, but UX it's a lot more vast.
Yeah, so that's more of the bigger picture. That's about understanding the whole experience and what goes within that. And part of that experience may be a digital offering that has some sort of UI, some sort of graphics, some sort of interface, but UI is more of a sort of really small subset within that sort of bigger picture.
Yeah, the example I always think about is right now we look everywhere and there are people walking around looking at the palm of their hands with these black rectangles, really big, that take over all our pockets. And we assume that innovation is what already exists, so creating apps and more digital touchpoints that talk to this device. But with innovation in haptic technology, for example, in even neuroscience, all these developments, it seems that we're moving now into the era of the augmented self, where we might have no visible interfaces. We might have the interfaces embedded somewhere in our eyes, projected in front of us.
Sure, I mean, if you
change things.
If you think of the basic human experience, what sort of experience is there about holding a glass box and just rubbing your finger on it? It's not really an experience. It's just a slightly mechanical, boring process. So as we start to disaggregate these sort of technologies and embed them into people as well as the sort of objects, that's where we can start to get these really exciting opportunities. You've got all these sort of startup companies and they've got all these great ideas coming possibly from a technical perspective rather than the user perspective, and it was about how can we sort of augment and help guide their strategic direction by creating this sort of idea of who their user is. And in many cases, even from the conversations that we was having there, people didn't know who their user was. When you say try and boil this down to a person, give them a face, draw them, people were really struggling. And they were, saying, well, the age range is between, 25 and 38. And you're like, well,
that's very different.
That's quite a big, that's a big range. That's from, just leaving university, you might be trying to prove yourself to the world, that sort of mentality, all the way through to someone who's a bit more settled, got a family, got a job, all these things. So, which one is it?
Yeah, well, in between 25 and 30, you have an enormous gap, having children or not having children, for example. Mm-hmm. That's life-changing. So
Exactly, and it can make a big difference to what you're trying to achieve with your business as well.
Spiro is an inhaler to improve the compliance of children who suffer with asthma. Spiro uses a twist actuation to fire an MDI canister into a concealed chamber. The user then inhales on the device and is guided through a sequence using various haptic feedback. The key innovations involve a twist mechanism that allows the canister force to be reduced and also uses an electric barometric pressure sensor to allow remote monitoring for parent